Ram, the vacuous spider. Ram, also known as the vacuous spider, is a minor antagonist in Bloodborne. She is a kin of the Great Ones stationed by Kos to protect the barrier between dreams and reality, hiding the many horrors that the pale blood moon should bring. Despite her title, Ram resembles a gigantic pill bug or a caterpillar rather than an arachnid. She has a silverfish-like tail and a bulbous body from which vegetation appears to be growing, possibly cold-blood flowers. Her face resembles a chunk of pumice and is covered in eyes, suggesting its connection to the Great Ones. Her name, vacuous, suggests that Ram is brain-dead, so her thoughts are so far beyond human understanding that Ram cannot communicate her findings to humanity. Apart from when the hunter attacks her, Ram is completely docile. Ram has the power to summon her offspring who fall from the sky when she is first attacked. At a distance, Ram can shoot large ice crystals skyward that land on the hunter. She can also create a magical blast from arcane magic. If attacked long enough, Ram can teleport to another part of the dimension, which spawns another batch of her children. Ram the vacuous spider is a kin or brethren to the Great Ones of the cosmos. Ram's large gray, rock-hard head is pockmarked with dull, seemingly sightless eyes that stare in all directions and a small round mouth filled with sharp teeth. Ram's body is overgrown with fluorescent flowers and additional dark eye-like shapes. Evidence indicates that Ram was the result of an experiment conducted at Byrgenwerth. When defeated, she will drop a kin cold blood, the description of which reads, "Dare not to delve into the world beyond humanity, the eldritch truth touched upon long ago at Byrgenwerth." And Michael Ash, member of the School of Menzies, and scholar of Byrgenwerth, gives a clearer picture of Ram's origins. To Kos, or some say Kosm. Do you hear our prayers? As you once did for the vacuous Ram, grant us eyes, grant us eyes. Plant eyes on our brains, to cleanse our beastly idiocy. Kin are humans who have ascended in one form or another. We see this throughout Bloodborne with enemies like the celestial emissaries, some of whom are created by Iosefka in the clinic, as evidenced by the unfinished emissary on the operating table with the human hand, and the correlation between survivors who are sent to the clinic and their emissary counterparts. Living failures as precursors to the emissaries and clear products of the research patients add further strength to this connection. Brain suckers still retain much of their human form and appear to be humans who have been experimented on with phantasms. And the Garden of Eyes enemies are the clearest example of human experimentation, and specifically the approach of inquiry that began with Master Willem at Byrgenwerth. Great One's wisdom description reads, "At Byrgenwerth, Master Willem had an epiphany. We are thinking on the basis of planes. What we need are more eyes." Rune description reads, "Eyes symbolize the truth Master Willem sought in his research." Disillusioned by the limits of human intellect, Master Willem looked to beings from higher planes for guidance, and sought to line his brain with eyes in order to elevate his thoughts. The Garden of Eyes are students or research subjects of Byrgenwerth who have had their brain lined with eyes in order to elevate their being and thoughts. The process appears to have driven them insane and vastly altered their bodies. Their swollen heads pockmarked with eyes resemble Ram's. It's easy to draw the connection that Ram underwent a similar process, and yet the result was vastly different. Again, Michael Ash perhaps provides us with a clue. To Kos, or some say Kosm. Do you hear our prayers? As you once did for the vacuous Ram, grant us eyes, grant us eyes. Plant eyes on our brains, to cleanse our beastly idiocy. We know from this that Kos is somehow inextricably linked to Ram's origins, and is even given credit for Ram's ascension. Third umbilical cord Iosefka description reads, "Provost Willem sought the cord in order to elevate his being and thoughts to those of a great one, by lining his brain with eyes. The only choice he knew, if man were to ever match their greatness." Long ago in the fishing hamlet the Byrgenwerth scholars committed blasphemy. The body of the Great One Kos was discovered, and studied, along with its unborn baby. The Byrgenwerth scholars' method of inquiry and experimentation is incredibly invasive, often to the detriment of the patient. A cursed brood description reads, skull of a local from the violated fishing village. The inside of the skull was forcibly searched for eyes, as evidenced by innumerable scratches and indentations. It can be seen in the hunter's nightmare that the orphan of Kos has an umbilical cord, and even uses the attached placenta as a weapon. It is a small leap to theorize that in the waking world Willem and the scholars of Byrgenwerth came into possession of the orphan's umbilical cord, or a part of it, and used it for their experimentation. The cord belonged to Kos, and if it allowed Ram to ascend, it would seem to Michaelash and the scholars that Ram had been reborn, vacuous like a newborn, and that Kos was Ram's mother, with Ram now acting as a surrogate for the dead Great One. Third umbilical cord descriptions reads, every Great One loses its child, and then yearns for a surrogate. It's the umbilical cord that allows the human to ascend or be reborn, but it requires a full umbilical cord and more for the player-hunter to ascend in the childhood's beginning-ending. An umbilical cord is a bridge to a baby's mother, but it needs to be connected to a medium, something that can convey sustenance, and in Bloodborne it's the blood that imbibes and sustains. All this seems to confirm that Ram was a result of experimentation at Byrgenwerth, having her brain lined with eyes and using the orphan's umbilical cord to ascend. But it may be that Ram was considered somewhat of a failure. Instead of sharing the secrets attained by her enlightenment, Ram is unable to communicate in any meaningful way. The spider hides all manner of rituals, certain to reveal nothing, for true enlightenment need not be shared. But while Ram is unable to share her secrets, she does serve a critical purpose. The Byrgenwerth Spider hides all manner of rituals, and keeps our lost master from us. A terrible shame. It makes my head shudder uncontrollably. Ram is seemingly responsible for the concealment of the blood moon, for keeping the ritual to beckon the blood moon a secret. After defeating Ram, the apparition of Yarnam, the Myrian Queen of Blood, is seen infiltrating the moonside lake. The queen stands weeping before a blood moon that quickly descends amid the cries of baby Murgo. Note seen after defeating Ram reads, ritual secret broken. Seek the nightmare newborn. The hunter receives these instructions from the moon presence, guiding them to the next phase of the hunt. It would appear that everything up to this point has steered the hunter towards removing Ram, who is proving a hindrance to the descent of the blood moon and its eldritch truth. Lake rune description reads, great volumes of water serve as a bulwark guarding sleep, and an augur of the eldritch truth. Overcome this hindrance, and seek what is yours. It's no coincidence that Ram is fought within the moonside lake, and that it is so closely tied to the moon. Willem and the scholars are seemingly obsessed with the moon, and the study of it. Byrgenwerth is littered with linariums, devices for illustrating the motion and phases of the moon, and the most central and massive component of the Byrgenwerth building is a telescope for studying the skies. The scholars were clearly interested in the moon. They studied history and archaeology, and were aware of the moon's historical significance. When the red moon hangs low, the line between man and beast is blurred. And when the great ones descend, a womb will be blessed with child. The School of Menses, one of the main branches of the Healing Church which has its roots at Byrgenwerth, sought to beckon the moon. Jahargul, unseen village lore note reads, madmen toil surreptitiously in rituals to beckon the moon. And it appears they succeeded, as long ago in old Yarnam the red moon descended, the red moon hangs low, and beasts rule the streets. Are we left with no other choice than to burn it all to cinders? The School of Menses appears to be one of the earliest branches of the Healing Church. Based on the proximity of the unseen village's grounds to Old Yarnam, the ritual to beckon the moon must have happened long ago. Central Yarnam lore note reads, when the hunt began, the Healing Church left us, blocking the great bridge to Cathedral Ward, as Old Yarnam burned to the ground that moonlit night. The nameless moon presence beckoned by Lawrence and his associates. Pale blood. Behold! A pale blood sky. These notes tell us that the hunt, as it is called, The cycle of hunters being imprisoned in the hunter's dream and undertaking the will of the moon presence or pale blood began on the night that old Yarnum was burned to the ground beneath the blood-red moon, and it was at this crucial moment that the healing church and its leadership retreated into their cathedral ward, leaving the Yarnumites to turn into beasts and burn. With Yarnum burning and the red moon turning the blood-drunk into beasts, the church was in crisis. It was perhaps at this point that Lawrence turned to his old master for help. There are still mysteries to what unfolded next, but it would appear that Ram was able to be utilized to forestall the worst effects of the red moon and obscure the eldritch reality from the remaining citizens of Yarnum and some members of the church. The college and the woods surrounding it became forbidden grounds, and only those who knew the old adage of the healing church and Byrgenwerth fear the old blood could gain admittance. A curious display of cooperation between the two institutions, as the password keeper is a scholar of Byrgenwerth who perhaps knew the stakes, should Ram ever be destroyed by a being who sought the descent of the red moon once more. A popular theory about Ram is that Ram is the surrogate child of Ebrietes. The 1/3 of umbilical cord, or cord of the eye, is a relic that comes from an infant Great One. In Bloodborne, the cord of the eye is used to make contact with Great Ones. What about the cord that imposter Iosefka possessed? The cord that we retrieve from her says that Provost Willem sought the cord in order to elevate his being and thoughts. If the cord was used by Willem, and the cords grant an audience with the infant Great One to whom it belongs, then this cord very likely belongs to Ram. Ram was possibly one of the special children that Miyazaki talks about in the future press game guide, who was chosen by a Great One to ascend and become their child. Whether this occurred with the help of Willem, or occurred in ancient Thumuru, there is evidence to suggest that Ram is the child of Ebrietes. We find a body that looks remarkably similar to Ram on the altar of despair, which Ebrietes kneels before as if in prayer. This may be the slumbering body of Ram at the altar of despair where we meet Ebrietes. Beyond this piece of evidence, there are also some similarities in how we encounter Ebrietes and Ram that further supports this. They both start out passive in their boss fights, and they both use arcane attacks. These similarities, combined with the appearance of a Ram-like figure at the altar of despair, are enough to link Ram to Ebrietes, and therefore link the cord that Willem used to Ram, the infant Great One to which it belonged. Also, Ebrietes is named after a butterfly and Ram appears to be a caterpillar, rather than a spider. Ram's blood when attacking her head is the same color as Ebrietes, and kin are said to be kin of the cosmos. Another theory is that Ram is the result of a successful ritual that was undertaken on the researched patients. In the early days of the healing church, the Great Ones were linked to the ocean, and so the cerebral patients would imbibe water and listen for the howl of the sea. Brain fluid writhed inside the head, the initial makings of internal eyes. If we follow the story of Saint Adeline, she eventually becomes an enlarged head because she has imbibed brain fluid, expanding her head until it is all that she is. But Adeline's case is a little different to the other patients. She is almost a success story in that she is able to perceive the milkweed rune, the language of the Great Ones. She also looks different to the other enlarged heads. She is drawn out, elongated. What if this is a similar process that Ram went through? Ram is essentially a head full of eyes, so what if Ram also imbibed water or eyes until her head expanded and it became all that she was? The mental state of the patients certainly deteriorates as they progress, and if that sac containing their enlarged head were to mature, would the internal eyes mature along with it and eventually transform them into something like Ram? If we look at Ram's head, it is that same ashen color as Adeline's head before it becomes tinged with blood. And if a head did expand till it was just eyes, then one can imagine it might look a lot like Ram's.